Hi Midnight fans, this is Midnight Myra. Welcome back to my scary stories. The story for tonight is The Rise of the Antichrist, Possessed by Satan, a prophetic story of deception and doom. By Mr. Lights Out. Chapter 1, The Charismatic Leader. The world was unraveling. Nations crumbled under the weight of economic collapse, wars left cities in ruins, and disease spread fear like wildfire. The people cried for salvation, for a leader who could restore order, for someone who could bring peace. Then he appeared. At first, no one knew his name. He was a rising politician, an eloquent speaker, a figure whose words carried both authority and a strange, undeniable charm. He spoke of unity, of rebuilding, of a world free from war and hunger. His speeches captivated millions, broadcasted to every screen, shared in every language. Leaders from the most powerful nations leaned in, eager to align with him. He was neither boastful nor forceful. He was calm, precise, and deliberate. His presence filled rooms, his eyes locked onto those who listened as if he could peer into their very souls. He promised hope, and in a world drowning in despair, hope was a currency greater than gold. The people loved him. The governments welcomed him. The world was ready for his rule. If you enjoy stories like this, know that I spend countless hours crafting these chilling tales just for you. Let me earn your subscription tonight and hit that bell, so you never miss the next terrifying adventure. I'll be ringing it too, every time a new story is ready to keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, let's dive back into the story. But something watched from the shadows. Something ancient. Something waiting. Imagine the world on the brink of collapse, craving salvation. Stay with us, as the rise of one man could change everything. Chapter 2, The Pact with the Dragon. The night was silent, but he felt the air shift around him. Standing in the highest tower of his estate, he gazed upon the city below, its streets lined with his banners, its people whispering his name in awe. Yet, he knew this was not enough. A voice slithered into his mind, a whisper that coiled like smoke. You have their admiration, but you need their worship. He did not turn, for he knew there was nothing to see. The presence was there, unseen, powerful, timeless. They are weak, the voice continued, and weak men seek gods to follow. I will make you that god. His pulse quickened, not with fear but with anticipation. He had always known there was something greater than men, something beyond this world. Now, it had come to him. It was offering him everything. What must I do? He asked, his voice steady. Bow. There was no hesitation. He knelt, lowering his head as shadows stretched toward him. A force surged through his body, burning into his bones, rewriting his very essence. The air crackled. His veins turned to fire. When he stood again, he was no longer the same. The voice laughed, a sound that echoed across eternity. Now, you are mine. And the world would soon kneel before him. The moment he made his choice, his transformation began. What price would he pay for the power of a god? Stay with us as his journey into darkness unfolds. Chapter 3, The False Prophet's Deception. A man stood beside him now. Not a warrior, not a politician, but a prophet dressed in robes of silk and gold. He was old, yet his eyes held the energy of youth, a gaze filled with divine conviction. The people need a sign, the prophet said, his lips curving into a knowing smile. The leader nodded, understanding. Power was not enough. The world had seen kings and emperors rise and fall. What they needed was proof, something undeniable. And so, in the great city square, before thousands of expectant eyes, the prophet raised his hands toward the sky. Flames erupted from the heavens, descending in controlled columns, swirling around the statue of the new ruler. Gasps filled the air. Some fell to their knees. Others wept. The message was clear: this was no ordinary man. He was chosen, divine. Behold, the prophet proclaimed, the one who has come to lead us into a new age. Who can stand against him? The crowd roared in agreement. The deception was complete. When the divine power revealed itself, the world was ready to worship. What happens when deception becomes the truth? Don't go away, the story is just getting started. Chapter 4: The Mark of the Beast. The world had changed. Borders faded. Governments bowed. One man ruled them all. But power demanded control, and control required loyalty. A decree was issued: those who wished to buy, to sell, to live freely in the new world must bear a mark. A symbol on the forehead or the right hand, a mark that bound them to their leader, to their God. Some resisted. They whispered of old prophecies, of warnings written in ancient texts. But they were few, scattered, powerless against the tide of devotion that had swept over the nations. The mark was everywhere now. On the hands of merchants, on the foreheads of children. It glowed softly in the dim streets, a silent reminder of the ruler's dominion. The world belonged to him. And for those who refused, there was only one fate: death. The mark that bound them to him is now everywhere. What happens when the world becomes a pawn in a game of control? Stay tuned, the final battle is drawing near. Chapter 5: The War Against the Saints. Not all had submitted. Hidden in the wilderness, in underground sanctuaries, there were those who still held on to the name of the one who had come before. They spoke of Jesus, of his return, of a final battle that would end the reign of the beast. But he knew of them. He sent hunters into the forests, soldiers into the ruins. The resistance was crushed wherever it arose. The few who were captured were dragged into the streets, made examples of before the crowds. Their defiance was foolish, their fate inevitable. His army stretched across the earth. No corner was beyond his reach. He was victorious. Or so he thought. Chapter 6: The Return of the King. The sky split open. Lightning crackled across the heavens, the air charged with something beyond human understanding. The people looked up, their eyes filled with awe and terror. And then they saw him. A figure rode from the clouds, a white horse beneath him, his robe flowing like molten fire. His eyes burned with light, his voice shook the very foundations of the earth. Behind him, an army of celestial warriors descended, their swords gleaming like stars. The Antichrist stood upon his throne, his face twisting in fury. He had prepared for war. His armies stood ready. But in the depths of his soul, a whisper of fear crept in. This was the moment. The war of all wars. The battle that would end everything. Chapter 7: The Final Judgment. The war did not last long. The forces of darkness crumbled before the power of heaven. The Antichrist fought, but he was nothing before the true king. His armies fell. His city burned. His throne was shattered. Then came the moment of reckoning. The false prophet screamed as he was seized, his golden robes torn, his illusions shattered. The Antichrist, once the ruler of the world, now trembled as unseen hands dragged him toward his final fate. The lake of fire awaited. And as they fell, their screams echoed into eternity. A new kingdom arose, one built not on deception but on truth. The world was free. The king had returned. And darkness was no more. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Be sure to come back for more spine-chilling stories. Are you brave enough to face the unknown? Hit like if you love horror, subscribe for more, and comment. Don't forget to ring the bell for notifications, I'll ring it for you too. And if you're into horror that keeps you up at night, Check out my books on Amazon, available in ebook, paperback, and hardcover. All from Mr. Lights Out, the master horror fantasy author from the Philippines. We make original stories for some scary fun. Writing and making videos helps me battle my seasonal PTSD, but once you start reading, will you be able to stop? Links in the description below. Big thanks to Lara's Horror Sound on YouTube. Subscribe, will ya? I have more stories coming your way.